Yet, but we're going to now. Hello, live community. All right, how many of you know this one? It's Jackie Porter, the financial confidant, and I'm back being your pretend DJ. And we've got the amazing sounds of the diva of all divas. I just hail this woman. She's so amazing. She's so amazing. Bear with me. I don't know why.
One time when
How dare some commercial try to come in and ruin our Tina moment. I'm going to go back and get her back on. Don't know how she just got lost like that, but you know what? We've got this. We're going to bring her back. You can't interrupt Tina in the middle of her song. Sorry, that's not the song. This is the DJ. This is the life of the DJ, right? Sometimes it works out and sometimes it don't. So we're going to start from the top because you know what? We've got to give this woman her due.
That's right.
We just lost her. And there's so many things I love about Tina, not least of which is that she's someone who proves you can have a restart. You can have a refresh. You can start over and still make it in your life. You can still actually come back, have a comeback. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably one of the things about her that inspires me so much. Yes. And she's such a badass, right? So I have the distinct pleasure of bringing in Marlene Doss from Aion Law. She's a co-founder and a lawyer. And you know, every time I bring somebody on and every time I play a song, there's always a reason. So you've got Tina in the background saying, "You better be good to me." And I love that because, first of all, she was the first woman who, to me, commanded respect. She's like, "You better be good to me," right?
Yeah.
I never heard that at that point in my life from a singer come across just so much like a boss, so much like someone in love with herself. And I thought that's such a great message for today's live because we're talking about, you better be good to me. What about lawyers? Lawyers, are you someone who's being good to yourself? Never mind being good to me. Tina's asking someone to be good to her. Are you being good to yourself when it comes to estate planning? This whole month is dedicated to estate planning and getting your legacy in order, getting your affairs in order. Because if you wait till you're dead, it's too late. So I am so grateful, Marlene, for you being here today because, you know, I think sometimes when you're a professional, and we're guilty of it in the financial industry, we feel like we can do things ourselves, but then potentially may not get around to it. And I don't know if it was you I was having this conversation with, so you have to remind me. Mm-hmm. But I was having a conversation with a woman who is married to a contractor. And we were talking about this whole concept of the shoeless shoemaker, right? And she's married to a contractor. And I said, you know, it's kind of like the shoeless shoemaker. Can you relate to that? As your husband's a contractor, do you have all those projects at home done yet? And she said that she had to hire a contractor. She got tired of
hilarious.
Of actually bugging her husband to get stuff done. So she hired a contractor and she's married to a contractor.
So funny. Oh my goodness. That's hilarious.
But, you know, to keep the marriage alive, they do have 2 kids. You know how these things look in family law, Marlene.
That's hilarious.
I just want to stay together. So she decided to stop the family arguments around stuff that he's left, the shoeless shoemaker, all the projects at home that he hasn't gotten to. I just want to know, lawyers out there, you know, I'm real on the real. Have you done your own will? Have you actually gotten around to writing it? Maybe you keep thinking, yeah, I'm a lawyer, I can do it. But maybe the problem is you shouldn't do it. So again, that's one of the reasons I brought in Marlene today, so we can talk about that. So welcome, Marlene.
Thank you so much, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here.
I hope you were enjoying the sounds of Tina with me. I saw you doing a few moves there until our song kind of came out of alignment, but it's all good. These are the things that happen when you're live on a show. But anyway, I just love Tina, and I'm so glad that she's representing for our live today. Mm-hmm. And I just want to know, like, what have been some of the things, like one of the reasons that you've decided to, you know, focus on helping lawyers get their affairs together? What was your reasons for deciding to go down that path?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the the shoemaker. Um, Listen, our goal with our firm is to make the law accessible, and that's not just to the general public, but it's to anybody in our communities. And as lawyers, we're in a service industry, so we're always on the giving end to our clients, which is great. In one shape or form, we're giving, right?
Right.
And hopefully, most of us are happy in the in our chosen careers in law and are doing what we actually love in practicing law. But I know, and I was guilty of it for a very, very, very long time, admittedly, that when you're doing that, and when, especially if you're a lawyer who's in their own business, or
You're busy.
you're busy. You're busy. It's fast paced. There's so many other priorities, and then you tack on the rest of life outside of your professional
That's
career.
right. You could have children that might be taken up.
Yeah, then you are definitely less on the
Yeah, and
checklist.
it's no different with finances, right? Like I
Yes.
think the live we talked about last week that people
Yeah.
are busy, and sometimes it's just easier after a long day to just go, I just can't deal with this.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll
And
get to it.
if you're and if you're in a relationship, the conversation is not just going to involve you. So it's not like you can just sit down and do everything. You have to have make time to have the conversation with the other person, with your kids running around, with what and it's so easy to put it on the back burner. If it's easy to put it on the back burner for the general public, I mean, we're educated and we know the importance of it, and we still put it on the back burner, right?
Absolutely. And financial planners, I mean, I'm not my own financial planner. You have to have advisors, because
Yes.
Sometimes probably the challenge is it definitely shouldn't be you, because sometimes knowing too much can be a dangerous thing too.
And it's not just that, it's the whole I'm going to get to it, I
Yes.
think is a problem, right? Because we just don't get to it. Like, I don't know how many of our, attendees can relate to this with me, but it was on my list for a long time. I'm an estate planning lawyer. Like, I do deal with wills and estates all the time. And it was on my list to do for my family. And I have young kids, and I know the consequences that would happen to, for my husband and my children.
Right.
Having that in place, and yet still it just kept going on the back burner, on the back burner, on the back burner.
Well, I'm going to actually ask. So, Confidant community, welcome to the live again. Jackie Porter, the financial confidant. Welcome, Confidant community members. I want to know, if you're a lawyer watching this live, do you have your will done? We're not going to judge. We just want to know. We want you to also be real with yourself. That's the other piece. So do you have your will done? Is that something that you've updated? COVID, lots of people's circumstances might have changed. I saw people, we talked about this last week, they had children, they got divorced. Have you updated your will, or do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney? Have you gotten those documents drafted? Or, like Marlene said, are you procrastinating? And if you are, I'd even love to know, what are your reasons? We gave you some of the ones maybe Marlene has heard of, which is, I'm busy, I've got lots going on. What are your reasons for not getting this really important thing done? Please feel free, post in the chat. So what are some of when people do draft this document, they draft their will. So because I've seen lawyers' wills, because I have a lot of clients who are lawyers, and they've drafted their own. Okay, you know who you are, but I won't name you, because that's not the kind of advisor I am. Confidentiality, everybody. I've seen these written, so these holographic wills, and I'm like, oh no, oh dear. Like, I've seen people write these things, and I get it. Maybe it's better than nothing, but I'm not certain. But I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, so what are some common mistakes? Because I saw this and I'm like, should we just get a professional estate planner involved so you get this done right? Because this paper will, I know you know your stuff, but it could get old, it could get damaged. But I'd love to get your feedback on what you see and what you think some of the common mistakes are.
I mean, I haven't seen wills drafted by other lawyers.
No, I'm just talking what your thoughts are, because on holographic wills, but you're a lawyer, you write yourself, kind of.
Yeah, so I've seen beneficiaries be witnesses. I've seen residual beneficiaries not named and then they were needed. I've seen challenges for capacity,
Oh,
um, because nobody can really, some parties are saying that the testator was incapable and wasn't, we weren't involved in the process, so we can't say anything or provide the testamentary evidence that we consulted with the client, did the whole assessment with them. We can confirm that they did have capacity, they knew what they wanted, they did mean to exclude the one child, all those kinds of things that we can jump in and assist with when we are a part of the process. Um, I've seen a lot of tax stuff missed.
yeah. And this is from people who clearly, maybe they have the training and the background to write their own wills.
Right.
But these things are being missed. What do you think the blind spot is? What's leading lawyers who are making drafting these documents to miss these important things?
So I think the guardianship pieces and the children's trusts need to be, you need to pay particular attention to those.
Right.
If there are trusts that need to be put in, or if there is room to use a trust, I think, depending on your area of practice, you may not be aware of the complexity of it and the intricacies of how it's written, but also when it would be useful, right? A lot of lawyers may or may not have relationships with their accountants that would be helpful when we're doing this process, especially if they are employed or incorporated.
So they're writing it based on what they know, it sounds like.
Right.
And sometimes knowing a little bit about something is dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you might feel like, okay, I could write this. So you could write this, but should you write this?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Based on, missing things. And I almost wonder as well, because I this is some of the issues I have even talking through my own financial plan and my own estate plan is, can my own bias hurt me in terms of doing these things, writing these things? Like, am I, if because I'm so invested, could that actually hurt me, drafting the right document?
I guess it depends on the person, I'm sure it can. You know what, the part of the estate planning and the beauty of having somebody else in front of you to discuss it with is to be able to bounce your ideas off of them. That's right. This is what I'm thinking to do, and this is why. And you tell me if, then we are there to say, okay, I get what the outcome is that you want to achieve, and what you're thinking of doing will accomplish it or it won't accomplish it. And maybe you should consider it this way. Just in talks recently with a family lawyer who is quite successful and part of a blended family, and we are working on his estate plans because, for a couple of reasons. One, it's a blended family and he doesn't do estate planning. So he doesn't know the details of it. And, it's him and his new wife partner that are involved. She has her own kids and, need to account for all of that. So it's and he's very busy, which is great.
Right.
But this isn't going to happen if he's waiting to do it and to figure out all the details of how it should be done right. And at least, I'm glad that he is aware of that and that he's reached out.
I mean, again, sometimes
are in place that's helping with those pieces. Accountant is there if we need to consult with them as well, because he does have a professional corporation stuff. Right. And it's just it's a different dynamic. And the other thing that I find helpful when you're dealing with another lawyer is being forced to schedule it.
Okay. So I'm hearing a few things. So I'm hearing it's kind of like, if I have it left to my own devices, I might procrastinate this, but it's kind of like making an appointment, right, with someone else,
because
someone
we
else can hold you accountable. So if it's something that you're serious about getting done, it can actually get done.
That's right.
The other thing I'm hearing is, there might be other professionals that you need to lean on in writing your estate plan. So left to you doing it yourself, kind of going back to that holographic, I wrote it down, it seems fine.
Right.
That might be okay. But if, depending on the complexity of your situation, you're going to want to run all this information by someone else, even just to talk it, take it out of your head. Because, what I see a lot in my industry, Marlene, is people do have blind spots, right? Because you're so emotionally involved, it's your own circumstances, that there might be things that you miss, that if you're talking it through with somebody else, it will give you the opportunity to make sure you don't miss anything important.
Yeah. And you know what, like, again, as good as we are as lawyers, we are not financial advisors. We are not accountants. You know, some people have more intricate knowledge of the tax pieces and whatever, but we are not financial planners. And I've been seeing this a lot as we're contacting at least, lawyers that are ready to retire out or are thinking about it, that don't have these pieces in place. And it's unfortunate when you get to that point, and we know better. We know better. You put the plan in place way before you're planning to do this, And Jackie, for me personally, and I will confess this again, the critical illness, disability insurance, those things that are needed also were on the back burner
Of
until.
course, I'm a professional nagger, as you've come to find out.
No, especially if you're starting out, if you're a sole practitioner or your partner or whatever it is, and maybe you're not that far into the thralls of it, and you at least turn your mind to it and get the advice and figure out what you're going to need and when, so that you know who you're going to go to and you can pull the trigger when it's necessary. But
It's what I'm
that's
hearing.
often. Pardon?
It's really important to not do
Yes.
these things like an estate plan in
Yeah.
isolation. You need a team, right? Because,
Yes.
at the end of the day, if you have a team, then that team can really help you with the end goal of, meeting the goals of your estate plan. And,
Yeah.
the goals of people's estate plans really vary. And that's why bouncing ideas off and having a team that are really focused as well on making sure that you do things. I was talking last week, Marlene, about the movie for a Sunday afternoon that happens sometimes when estates are done and they're not done well. Or the other piece is, and this is something I'd love to get your feedback. Are you finding that lawyers are sharing what's in their estate plan with their loved ones? Because I find there's a really great book out there called what's it called now? It's completely gone from my mind. Have you ever had that moment? Completely gone from my mind. Willing Wisdom. Have you ever heard of that? And it just talks about why it's important for people to share what's in their will.
Yeah.
So bouncing that off a team, making sure you put a plan together that preserves your wealth and passes it well to the next generation. So the government doesn't get more money. That's what a financial planner and your accountant will work on. And then you working with a lawyer with the how that things should be done in a way that means your family continues to talk to one another and you don't end up being another movie for a Sunday afternoon to watch. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, everything that you just said.
Unfortunately, these things happen, right? So I just wondered if you've seen when you're drafting wills, are people sharing it? Is that a trend? Like, I just wondered what the trends were in estate planning when it comes to, when people are writing their wills. What are you hearing? Are people doing that? Are people telling? Because that's something we talk a lot about in our.
So with our clients, we definitely encourage it. I just had a meeting with a couple not too long ago, and they're thinking of giving a large part of their estate to one of their children, and
not the other.
They have 3 children. Yeah, and they have their reasons for doing that, but I must have asked them 10 times if they were sure that that's what they wanted to do, and just really encourage them to have the conversations with the children, and just highlighted the impact that it can have, that it can really result in complete disintegration of relationships once they're gone, if they're all surprised by this, and if it's going to lead to some arguments, disagreements, you have them, you deal with it, rather than leaving it to them, because they're already going to be in a state of mourning and whatever.
Right.
And I think some people still don't understand that what your will says is often interpreted as a reflection of your emotions towards them, which may or may not be true.
Which it could just have been badly written. So, I'm wondering, our lawyers, because again, if you're doing something in isolation, so confidant community, lawyers out there who are shoeless shoemakers, who might be procrastinating doing their will, or they might have done it in isolation. They're like, this looks fine. I don't know if I've set things up so that I'm paying the government, giving the government the least amount of money possible, passing my assets on in the best way possible. Where is my team, right? Like, am I doing this in isolation? So ask yourself, do you actually have something in place right now that you're confident is going to not create any family disharmony, movie for a Sunday afternoon, or potentially give the CRA. I know everybody loves paying the CRA while they're alive, having money come out of their paycheck, or
Yes.
at the end of the year have to write a huge check to CRA. Do you want to do that? You want to do that for the final time and give more to CRA than you actually want to? This is why, building the team, having that conversation, not procrastinating, making it a priority. This is June. This is estate planning month. So we just want to make sure, because we often, take the legal community for granted and figure, oh yeah, lawyers must have all these things figured out. And you see it, Marlene.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's not just, having your wills and your powers of attorneys in place. Even if you're able to do that yourself, just make sure that part of it is making sure that you've turned your mind and put the plans in place for all types of assets that you have, and that you've made arrangements or arranged your stuff so that if anybody ever needed them, they know where to find them. They have up-to-date statements. They have up-to-date, portfolios. If you have a legal practice, they know how to deal with that and who's going to be put in place to wind that up if it's necessary, or if you become incapable, or any of these things come up, right? So
huge. I mean, again, this is something I think people don't put their mind to or don't pay too much attention to. But where is your documents located? Again, you pat yourself on the back. Maybe you're the lawyer who've actually gone ahead and done the will and done the estate, and maybe it's all great. But where is it? Does anybody know? Does your business?
Where are all your passwords? Where are all your passwords? Where's all your login information? What online accounts do you have? Where's your social media? Who has access to all of this stuff? Are you keeping it up to date? These are just some of the things that we do talk about, and we help our clients organize at whatever level. But if we're talking to other lawyers right now, it's this is something to think about and make sure that you do have in place, and that somebody you trust does have access to these things, because I can tell you a bunch of stories.
Yeah, let's hear. I would love to hear one of your stories, because last week we were on here. I was here with Jen, and we were talking about estate planning just for business owners. And it's like, where are your documents located? Yeah. Your executor, or the person who ends up having to deal with your affairs if you didn't have anything done, ends up sometimes having to be a private detective, never mind family counselor. But I'd love to hear some stories, just to give people a real sense of what they can expect if they do procrastinate and never get around to.
I mean, it was something so simple. One of our clients had a sudden death in the family, and the individual who passed away had an iPhone, and lots of pictures and things stored on that, but they didn't have the password to get into the iPhone. Now, Apple is based in the US, so getting appointed as the trustee is not sufficient for them to give you access to the iPhone. And they wanted I hope I'm getting this right. They wanted a document issued from Ontario courts with language related to US laws, which was not going to happen. Okay. And none of the estate litigators that I contacted knew how to deal with this. And it's still, this is basically lost. And it's sad, because it's invaluable to the family. They would have loved to see the pictures and everything else that's stored on this phone, but unfortunately they've been hitting walls left, right, and center as to how to access it. Something so small, right, that we just don't think about and can easily be missed unless we intentionally turn our attention to it.
Yeah, people have their lives on their phones. Yeah, and most people, Confidant community, I'd love to know how many of you who are listening to this live, even later, I'd love to know who knows your passwords. Mm-hmm. Does anybody know your passwords? So what would happen if, God forbid, you passed away? How would they get into your cell phone or your access to your banking information, pay your bills? Yeah. Know where to find all that information if you're not organized around your estate plan. You don't have a legacy plan. We were talking about the broad strokes, the big picture, making sure you pass on your assets. But how do people locate your assets?
Yeah, I have it stored on my computer. I have it stored in the cloud. Okay, so who can get that other than you? Right?
Exactly.
So it's just an important piece of the estate plan, period, that I hope our audience and everybody out there is paying attention to. because it's a piece that can cause a lot of problems. People can't close out Facebook and LinkedIn accounts without these things. They live in perpetuity, which you may not want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if you have a social media
They may
account,
not want it. Yeah.
even if you have a social media account, unless the person has access to your Facebook, you might be out there in the cloud or on social media forever. People can't even, access your account to close it down or even put it on memoriam. There are a lot of rules around these things. And again, the danger, I think, when you're a lawyer and you can do your will, does that mean you should? Just because you can, does that mean you should? Is really something I want legal professionals to think about, because there are so many faucets, and sometimes the danger is the little that might not be enough to deal with all that you don't know. We were talking today about having a team, maybe leaving out really important pieces. Maybe you've written things down and maybe it's actually not done the proper way because maybe things have changed a bit. And then just not structuring yourself in a way so that you're making sure you have a team that can help you pay the least amount of taxes, not thinking about where things are located. There's a lot of different pieces to consider. What advice would you give, Marlene, for people who are watching now? What advice in terms of what they can do if they're willing to take the next step? What would be the advice that you would give them?
Just reach out to a trusted lawyer that we're here. We're ready to help if you need it. But honestly, if you have a lawyer that specializes in this area, is more, deals with a lot of estate planning, start the process. Just get it started if you haven't already, and make sure that you keep it up to date. That would be the big things. And honestly, as I think most lawyers know, one of the things that is really needed and gets, ignored is the need for the powers of attorneys. And sometimes it's even more so than the wills, especially in our profession.
Talk about that.
So, but it's really important, because if we are the workers and whatever else, and we become incapable or we're stuck outside of the country or whatever happens, those powers of attorneys are really, really important. So if you're going to do nothing else, then do your powers of attorneys. But as we all know, having these plans in place, and this is what I tell to my clients, generally speaking, if you do it right and you do it once, chances are you don't have to touch it for a really, really long time, unless things substantially change for you, or you have a big increase in wealth, you have a big decrease in wealth, family members pass away or beneficiaries pass away, and you need to update things. But if you've turned your mind to everything, and yes, it does take a little bit of time, we all know this, right? But you do it right in the beginning, and you make sure that you've addressed everything and it's been papered up, and you're not waiting on yourself to have the time to do it, then it's there. And and I think I've said this to you before, Jackie, then you can kind of treat it like an insurance policy, and it's just, you put it there, you set it aside, you ignore it, and until
something changes,
or something changes, then it's there and you live securely.
Yeah, I mean, typically, as you said, it's like every 3-5 years, look at it. But mostly, particularly if the laws change or if your life circumstances change. So, Confidant community, if you do nothing else from this live, I want you to think really carefully about your legacy. Because I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. Not doing anything is also a decision, right? So if you do nothing, make that appointment. That really important priority is yourself, your family, your legacy. So make that appointment with your estate lawyer, even if you're one, and keep it. That's the key. Make that appointment and keep it. Marlene, so thankful that you were here today to talk to our live community about this important subject, estate planning for lawyers. Live community, have you done your estate plan? If you have done it already and you're like, I've got this, I'm a boss, I've done this, please post in the chat. We also want to hear from you as well. This whole month, June is estate planning month. It's dedicated to how you can, put your estate plan together, build that legacy. We're going to have a whole lot more for you next week around estate planning. If you're someone who is still struggling with organizing your financial affairs, figuring out how to pay the least amount of income taxes, please reach out to us. Please reach out to our team. I'm going to also come back and say, of course, we're going to be adding you, Marlene, to our trusted lawyers list. So we have a list of people that we recommend, estate lawyers, our trusted list. So if you didn't get a chance to reach out to us last week and you're looking for a lawyer, you want to know you can find somebody in your neighborhood who you might click with, we've talked to them. We've got the list. Reach out to us. You're going to be able to find Marlene on our list. And, again, next week, we're going to have another really awesome live. I'm going to talk about next week. I'm so excited. What you can learn from celebrities around estate planning. So you're going to have to check that one out, Marlene. It's going to be fun.
Sounds interesting.
Yes. So stay tuned. Please, of course, if you like this live, share it, pass it on to someone who might need to hear this message, and definitely stay tuned to all of our social media channels for all the latest updates. Thanks, everybody. See you
Thanks,
next
Jackie.
week. Thanks for coming, Marlene. Have
My
a great
pleasure. Thank you.
Live community, confidant community.
Bye.